Ladies, let me tell you something, and I want you to hear me clear. He never loved you. He used you. I know that's hard to swallow, but truth don't always come sugar-coated. You ever notice how some people only call you when they need something? That man, you thought he loved you, didn't you? You thought it was real. But let me break it to you plain. Love doesn't operate on convenience. Love shows up when it's raining, not just when the sun is shining. He came around when it was easy, when you were giving, when you were nurturing, when you were holding him down. But where was he when you were struggling? Where was he when you needed someone? That's not love, baby. That's a user. That's someone who saw what you could offer and decided to tap in like you were a bank account, not a woman with a heart. See, you thought his attention meant affection. You mistook his presence for commitment. But a man who loves you doesn't come and go when it suits him. A man who loves you doesn't disappear when life gets hard. A man who loves you doesn't just show up with a need. He shows up with intention, with consistency, with effort. Real love shows up when you're sick, not just when you're sexy. Real love asks how your day was, not just what's for dinner. Real love doesn't keep score. It gives freely, it cares deeply, it invests, not extracts. You are so focused on loving him right that you didn't notice he wasn't loving you at all. You ignored the red flags because your heart was honest. You excused the late replies, the broken promises, the silent treatment, because you kept hoping that maybe, just maybe, he'd turn into the man you imagined. But he wasn't showing you love. He was showing you how little he respected your heart. You thought if you loved them harder, he'd finally see your worth. But let me tell you something. People don't love you better just because you give them more of yourself. Sometimes the more you give, the more they take, and the less they value it. Some men don't want a queen, they want a cushion, someone to fall back on. And you were that until you weren't convenient anymore. You see, convenience love is dangerous because it's deceptive. He smiled at you when it suited him. He called you beautiful when he was lonely. He touched your body but never tried to understand your soul. That wasn't love, that was comfort. You were comfortable to him, not special, not sacred, just available. But don't blame yourself for that. You loved with a full heart. And that's nothing to regret. That's something to be proud of. It means you're capable of loving deeply. It means your heart is working. His wasn't. His heart was a transaction. Yours was a gift. That man saw you as a convenience store. Walk in, grab what he needed, walk out. No investment, no commitment, just access. But baby, you're not a convenience store. You're a castle. And castles don't open their gates for just anyone passing by. A man has to earn his way in. He has to show he belongs there. And that starts with consistency. Now ask yourself this. When you needed someone to talk to, was he there? When you were tired, overwhelmed, lost, did he reach out or pull back? When life got real and you needed more than his hands, you needed his heart, his mind, his presence, did he step up or did he disappear? Because love isn't just about showing up when it's easy. It's about staying when it's hard. It's about choosing you daily, not occasionally. It's about making you feel safe, seen and supported, not confused, anxious, and alone. You were loyal to someone who treated you like an option. That's not on you, that's on him. That's his lack of maturity, his lack of integrity, and most of all, his lack of love. Because love doesn't pick you up and drop you off like a rental car. Love doesn't treat your heart like a vending machine, press a button, take what you want, and walk away. Love sits with you in silence, lifts you in pain, and walks with you when the road gets rough. He didn't do that. He used you. And maybe it hurts to admit that, but the truth will free you. It will set you on a new path, a path where you don't chase affection, where you don't settle for crumbs, where you no longer ignore the signs just to keep someone close. From now on, pay attention to consistency, not charm, not chemistry, not butterflies. Anybody can give you butterflies, but not everybody will build with you. Not everybody will hold you through your storm. Not everybody will show up when it's inconvenient. Remember this, the man who truly loves you won't just show up when it's easy. He'll be there when it's uncomfortable, when it's inconvenient, when it costs him something. And until you see that in a man, don't give away your heart. Don't give away your peace. Don't give away your power. Because you're not hard to love, you just love someone who never intended to love you back. Let me tell you something I need you to carry deep in your spirit. Just because someone used you doesn't mean you ain't worth loving. That man didn't see your value, not because it wasn't there, but because he wasn't equipped to recognize it. And that's on him, not on you. You gave him love, loyalty, patience, and understanding. And he gave you confusion. He gave you silence. He gave you broken promises. That wasn't a reflection of your value. That was a reflection of his limitations, his immaturity, his selfishness. You were never the problem. His inability to appreciate what he had, that was the problem. But when you get hurt like that, when someone uses your heart like it's disposable, it's easy to start thinking maybe you weren't enough. Maybe you should have been more. Maybe if you looked different, acted different, said less, did more, he would have stayed. But that's a lie, a dangerous, destructive lie. Because the truth is, no matter how perfectly you show up for the wrong person, they still won't know how to love you right. It's not that you weren't worthy of love. It's that he wasn't ready to give it. He didn't come into your life to love you. He came to take what he needed and leave. That doesn't make you foolish. That makes you human. That makes you loving. That makes you brave. You tried. You gave. You hoped. That's nothing to be ashamed of. That's something to stand on with pride. You showed up with authenticity in a world full of people playing games. You gave him your best, even when he was giving you his bare minimum. And somehow you started to believe his lack of effort was your fault. But hear me, you are not what happened to you. You are not the pain he left you with. You are not the lies he told. You are not the nights you cried wondering what more you could have done. You are still valuable, still precious, still powerful. When someone uses you, it's not because you're weak, it's because you were open, because you loved with no filter, no armor, no conditions. And the wrong person saw that not as a gift, but as a way in. They saw your kindness and mistook it for naivety. They saw your heart and assumed they could trample it. But let me remind you, you are not broken. You are not damaged goods. You are not hard to love. You just love someone who had no business receiving that kind of love in the first place. Sometimes we love people who are only meant to teach us, not keep us. Sometimes the lesson is in the pain, and I know that hurts. But pain is a teacher, and it comes to build you up, not tear you down. You got to stop internalizing someone else's inability to love you. You got to stop thinking you were unworthy because he walked away. People walk away from diamonds all the time when they don't recognize what they're looking at. Some folks are out here searching for glitter and they can't recognize the shine of something real. That's what you were. Real, but he wasn't ready. He wasn't real. He was passing through, trying to feel important, trying to feed his ego. And when you started asking for depth, for honesty, for consistency, he backed out, because that takes a grown man, and he wasn't one. Stop blaming yourself for his exit. Stop picking yourself apart in the mirror. Stop replaying conversations trying to decode every word he said. Some people don't deserve closure. Some people don't deserve your explanations. You don't need to figure out why he didn't stay. What you need to figure out is why you doubted your worth just because he couldn't see it. You were used, yes, but you are not useless. You were taken for granted, but you are not disposable. You were hurt, but you are not unlovable. You're still here, still breathing, still standing. And baby, if you survive being used by someone who never truly saw you, imagine how powerful you'll become when you start giving that love to yourself. You got to stop tying your value to who stayed or who left. People can only meet you at the level of their own healing. And some of them are still broken in places they won't admit. You walked into his life offering peace, and he was addicted to chaos. You gave him clarity, and he chose confusion. That's not your failure. I want you to reclaim your narrative. You are not a victim, you are a warrior. You didn't lose him, he lost you. And one day he'll look back and realize he has something special, something rare, something real. But by then, you'll be long gone, healing, growing, thriving, and finally being loved by someone who doesn't need to be taught how to treat you. So stand up, wipe your tears, lift your chin, and remember who you are. You were used, but you are not used up. You're still whole, still powerful, still deserving of a love that sees you, respects you, and stays. You didn't fall in love with him. You fell in love with the idea of him, with the potential you saw, with the man you hoped he'd become. You fell for his charm, his smile, the way he said all the right things when he wanted something. But now, it's time to face something you've been avoiding. He was never that man. That version of him, the one you defended, the one you waited on, the one you kept forgiving, he existed in your mind, not in real life. See, it's not always the heartbreak that breaks us. Sometimes it's the letting go of the fantasy, the illusion we clung to so tightly. You weren't in love with reality, you were in love with hope. You kept holding on because you believed he'd change. You thought if you gave him more time, more love, more chances, he'd finally become the man he kept pretending to be. But here's the truth that hurts. You were holding on to potential, not a person. And potential, baby, will break your heart every time if it never turns into action. He gave you glimpses, moments, just enough to keep you hanging on, just enough to stir up your imagination. He knew how to say what you needed to hear, but he never backed it up with real effort. He'd disappear when it mattered. He'd avoid responsibility. He'd blame you for your emotions. And every time he came back with apologies and sweet talk, you told yourself, maybe this time it'll be different. But it wasn't, because it was never real. He didn't want to grow. He didn't want to show up. He didn't want to love you the way you deserve. He just didn't want to lose the benefits of having someone loyal, loving, and strong in his corner without having to give you the same in return. Letting go of him isn't the hardest part. Letting go of the illusion is. The illusion kept you stuck. It kept you praying for change instead of walking away. It kept you romanticizing the good days while ignoring the bad patterns. It made you ignore your instincts and betray your own boundaries because you were so busy chasing what could be instead of seeing what actually was. And I know it's tough because your heart was in it. You meant everything you said. You weren't faking it, he was. And that kind of betrayal cuts deep. It makes you question your judgment. It makes you doubt yourself. It makes you wonder, how did I fall for someone like that? But don't beat yourself up. You weren't stupid. You were optimistic. You were loving. You believed in someone. And that's not a flaw. That's a reflection of your beautiful spirit. What's broken isn't your heart. It's the version of reality you built around a man who never earned it. You created excuses for him. You blamed the timing, his past, his childhood trauma, his stress at work, anything to make sense of why he kept treating you like you were optional. You saw the red flags, but you painted them white because your love was real. But no amount of love can change a man who's committed to staying the same. What you have to do now is look at the facts, not the fantasy. The facts say he hurt you repeatedly. The facts say he made promises he didn't keep. The facts say he showed you who he really was, but you kept looking past it. Why? Because you were loyal to a future that was never going to happen. You stayed not because he loved you well, but because you loved him deeply. And that kind of loyalty, when it's one-sided, will drain you. Now is the time to see him for who he really was. Not who you hoped he'd become, not who he pretended to be on the best days, but who he consistently showed up as. A man who could communicate, a man who ran from accountability, a man who kept you guessing about where you stood, a man who used your love as a safety net, not a foundation. You can't heal while you're still clinging to the illusion. You can't grow while you're still watering a dead plant. You can't find peace while your mind is stuck replaying the highlight reel of a relationship that was mostly disappointment with a few sugar-coated memories. Love isn't supposed to confuse you. It's not supposed to hurt all the time. It's not supposed to make you feel like you're never enough. Real love is steady. Real love brings clarity. Real love stands the test of time, and you shouldn't have to beg for it. So now it's time to wake up. Time to see things for what they really were. Not with anger, not with bitterness, but with truth, with clarity, with the kind of honesty that sets you free. Because the moment you stop loving who he could have been and start accepting who he really was, is the moment you take your power back. That's when you start healing. That's when you open the door for the right one. The man who won't need fixing, who won't come with empty promises, who won't leave you stuck between hope and heartbreak. You were never asking for too much. You were just asking the wrong man. I know your heart is tired. I know your spirit feels heavy. When someone you gave your everything to turns around and treats you like you were nothing, it shakes you. It makes you question who you are. But let me tell you this, and I need you to hear it loud and clear. Healing is not weakness. Healing is power, real power, the kind that doesn't always roar, but stands up quietly every morning and says, I'm still here. You survived the blow. You survived the heartbreak, the disappointment, the betrayal. You made it through nights when the silence felt louder than any noise. You picked yourself up when he walked away like you didn't matter. And you know what? That's power. That's not something just anybody could do. That's strength forged in pain.